Sockets. I can't fix anything without some of these things, except maybe a sandwich, and I've got a bunch of them. One drawer here and one drawer in this other toolbox is full of sockets, and that's where the problem comes in. Organization. How do you keep these things organized in such a way that you can find the socket that you're looking for when you need it? I'm going to open up these drawers and then pull out the organizers that I use. We'll take it to the bench and I'll show you what I like and what I don't like. Well, here's what I've got. This is almost like a mini toolbox tour. Over on this side here, I've got my 1/2-inch sockets, and on this side, these are my 1/4 and 3/8. Now these are all metric. My standards don't fit, and that's kind of a problem, but that's more of a toolbox problem. Let's take out some of these organizers, and we're just gonna talk about those today. All right, what you're looking at here is most of the sockets that I use most often. I've got others, but we're just gonna look at these today because they have different types of storage options. And let's start with what sockets used to come on. That's these metal rails. I think sockets always used to come on these. I've still got some that I've purchased a long time ago. This one, actually I've got 2 of them. Both of these are made by Snap-on. The metal on there is a little bit heavier. I like that. Some of those Harbor Freight ones you can buy are just complete garbage. They fall apart. I don't recommend buying those. But even these kind of have their place, and that place is history. I think there are much better options out there that hold on to sockets better, especially these heavy, these are gray pneumatic impact swivels. These are a heavy socket. Like this here, this is a plastic socket rail. It's got the same sort of idea as the other one, the metal one, but this is plastic. It's made by Tekton, and it's got that ratcheting design to where it kind of holds onto these sockets in the position where you want them. And there's got a little bit of a trick. You turn this a 1/4 turn, like that. Socket comes off easy, 1/4 turn the other direction, and it stays on. But this socket rail really shouldn't be used on impacts. Even this one that I hardly use, if you don't turn it, it can still come off. And I don't like that. So it's not perfect, but one thing I noticed, see if you put a chrome socket, there we go, on there, it holds on a lot better. So this rail, probably not made for impact sockets. The inside of a chrome socket is built a little bit differently than the impact, so I don't recommend it for this, but for chrome, it's pretty good. It's made in the USA by Tekton, and they have a lifetime warranty on there, so that's not bad. I haven't broken this yet. Some of these rails are kind of wearing out for, like this is my 10mm, so this gets a lot of use and it's really loosey-goosey. I think I'm just gonna replace this little peg here with one of the extras I've got on the end. But like I said, lifetime warranty, so I could probably just turn it in and get a whole new rail. Now sometimes you'll buy a socket set from Snap-on or Mac or somebody, and they'll come in a tray like this. This one skips sizes. It's a 1/2-inch swivel socket set, and it skips sizes that aren't used very often, which is fine with me in 1/2-inch, but you can see in 3/8 I've got no skips. This tray is pretty good if you leave it in your toolbox, but you can see it's getting kind of beat up here, and I definitely wouldn't take this out on a roll cart or anything like that because these sockets will just fall right out. So my favorite way to store swivel sockets is on a rail like this, because you can't put it on a peg on one of these socket trays because it won't go through. All right, sticking with what you get when you buy a socket set, something like this here is a magnetic tray. This is what Snap-on sells their sockets in most of the time. It's magnetic, and it's got an individual size pocket for each one of the sockets that comes in there. You can see I'm missing this one. I think that's a 3mm. I think the lowest one I've got right now is a 4. I don't know what happened to it. But these are pretty good. And I like it because you can hang it upside down. Those magnets are pretty strong. Or you can stick it to the top of like a flip-up cart, and it can just hang there instead of taking up space in a drawer. So these are pretty good. I keep my SAEs just in the magnetic tray that it came in because I don't even have room in my drawer for these. They get put away because I barely ever use these. And something funny with Snap-on, on most of their trays, if it's an SAE set, it comes in red, and your metrics will come in black. Unless it's like this one here, which is a Torx set, and they only come in one size, obviously Torx, so they put it in red. The problem that I have with this type of magnetic tray is the size of it. See how wide it is compared to the row of sockets? Space is at a premium in my toolboxes. I don't even have room for all my tools, so I can't be leaving them in these magnetic trays. I gotta find something else, and that leads us to these trays here. This tray here is what I've been using for my 1/2-inch impacts. The deeps are a Tecton, and the shallow is Gray Pneumatic. It's made by Pittsburgh, but it's got some flaws. First is the orientation. You can only put sockets going straight up, and then your 1/2-inch square has to go down on that little peg, and it has to be oriented correctly. So you can't just drop the socket on it. You have to put the square on it as if you were loading it onto a ratchet or an impact. And that takes time. Not a lot of time. Next is this tray. It's plastic, made by Steelman. I like that the numbers are out here. It's pretty easy to read, and you don't have the square at the bottom. You can just put the sockets on those pegs in any orientation, drop them and go. Now the Hansen socket tray is an improvement on that. The sockets go upside down onto this little peg, and the bottom of each little peg has a base that's the same size as the socket that it's supposed to go onto. So if I took this 19 and tried to put it on a 15mm peg, that's as far down as it would go. So I know very quickly which socket goes where, and that way I don't lose them. But you'll see that I've got an 8mm peg without a socket on it. That's not because I don't have an 8mm socket. That's because the 8mm that I do have is an impact socket, and it's a little bit thicker than a chrome socket. And if I try to put it where it goes, you can see that it bunches up. And then on the shallow, it doesn't even go all the way down the peg because it's hitting this other socket. So I have to put them over here, and they do fit, but it's kind of a pain. I think they also do sell a 3-row version, but I haven't been able to buy them online. My Snap-on dealer had this one, and it's orange, so of course I had to buy that one, and I really like this tray. This is my favorite for inside the toolbox, but it's not something that you want to carry around very often because these little pegs can break very easily. You can see how bendy they are, and if I were to go any more, this would snap right off. It says Snap-on on there. They don't make it. It's made by Hansen in the USA, like it says, and they're a good tray. It's a great little tray. It doesn't take up too much room in my toolbox, and it's really easy to just look at this tray and make sure I have all my sockets put away before I let that car go out of the bay with my 10mm sitting on top of the engine somewhere. I've seen other mechanics with these trays and these little tabs are broken off, and that's just kind of what happens. I'm a little bit more careful with mine. I like to keep them in good condition. So I got to get those sockets back in this drawer because there's a cylinder head right over there that needs to be installed on a Ford Focus so that that lady can go to work next week. So I'm about to call it quits here, but don't call it quits on me. Leave me a comment and tell me what your favorite socket organization method is. Thanks for watching.